they've got to be laughing. They've got to be loving this. They've taken all the focus off themselves. And has Jim fallen into the trap of taking over the responsibility of being the bad guy?
It's hard to imagine a scenario where the Glazer family have not played their part in these latest antics. We're touching on Sunday's protests, ticket hikes, the win against Everton, a Wednesday trip to North London, and much more. Coming to you very, very early this week, it is your Theatre of Red. It is a new week full of a brand new array of drama on and off the field at Manchester United. And as per usual, I'm going to do my best to cover it all for each and every one of you beautiful people. Alongside me this Monday evening is a man who will be known to many of the United community, a veteran match-going Red with his own podcast and a supporters branch in West Limerick, Mr. Brian Murphy. It's been a minute, my man. How is everything with you?
Ron, all good in West Limerick. It's been a while since we caught up. Very glad to be back in your company again for a bit of a chin wag on all things United.
Likewise, man. It has been quite some time. I think we'd need more than 30, 40 minutes to get through everything that's happened since, but there is so much to chat about, given our background and the unique issues this is inevitably going to present to you in what you get by on a weekly basis. I want to start with matters off the field first. In a matter of weeks, Sir Jim Radcliffe and his Ineos machine has gone from potential white knights to job-cutting owners who've not only disregarded the common sense surrounding the manner of distribution of European away tickets, but have confirmed the increase of ticket prices to £66 mid-season, meaning a parent taking their child for a once-off annual trip will have to shell out about £132 for the right of entering the ground. And that's before you factor anything else into it. Furthermore, you're looking at the 25% discount that was applied for Europa League and League Cup outings will no longer be offered for future rounds. All of these have been labelled as cost-saving measures to put the club in a stronger financial position. And I know it's leaning on financial damage that has been caused by the Glazer ownership and the attempts to make the club competitive in the future. This was met with peaceful protests before Sunday's visit of Everton, with members, even of the away support, taking part in proceedings to voice their concerns about safeguarding the future of the game. Not just Manchester United, but the future of the game. Now, I've been involved in protests for longer than I care to remember regarding this football club. I want to get your take on proceedings and your feelings regarding the past couple of months with Sir Jim and co at Manchester United.
It's taken a bit of a strange arc because we spent so long wanting a change of ownership and we spent so long in the ownership process to take over. And would it be the fake shake? Would it be the, in inverted commas, local lad Sir Jim coming in? And I think most of us thought Ineos was the better choice. I certainly haven't changed my mind on that I want this shake guy coming in and taking over. But a lot of the stuff I've seen in the more recent times of them concerns me. Like, we knew they were going to come in and ruffle feathers a bit and change things up because the business model wasn't working and the focus off the pitch was too strong. The focus on the pitch was suffering. And then we saw, I think it was 250 redundancies, like working class folk, good people. I know quite a few good folk working at the club, doing an honest job for an honest wage, not on massive wages by any money. They got chopped, and that was a bit of a, oh, wow, wasn't really expecting that one. Then they turned to ticketing, and like you mentioned, the European away collections, baffling decision, absolutely baffling to decide that sending 8 club staff plus security and room hire was not deemed worthy expenditure to protect a system that's been in place for a number of years, which is one of the only things in a fractured fan base that everybody agreed worked. Because no one had many complaints about it, whether you were on full maximum credits of 10, 11, 12 or on 0. It worked. It was there to design to promote loyalty, to reward loyalty, but also an open door to try and get in there. That was a concerning change. We've still been dealing with that in the past few weeks and still been trying to get our heads around it. When they, out of nowhere, dropped a mid-season price change, never happened before, never been done before. Changing the prices mid-season is a massive kick in the teeth to any United fan. But the way they're framing it is that these 97%, this is something, like, I've been involved with United for, Jesus, how many years now, and tickets specifically. I never knew there was this 97% of concessionary tickets in the ground and 3% weren't under concession. Totally new to me until they announced it. But not only did they announce the concession was gone, it's gone all ages, all areas. So it's now £66, regardless of what age you are or what section it is. So they've removed it. All Premier League games, except for Arsenal and Man City's initial release, will not have any concessions available and will be priced at £66. Taking into account this, it changes a family of 4, so 2 adults and 2 kids. And looking at this from a supporters club, I run a branch of a supporters club. So looking at this from our perspective, we predominantly get North Tier 3. Again, inverted commas, the worst seats in the ground, but they can be and they can't be. But they've gone from 2 adults and 2 kids paying £146 to now £274 to attend the game in the highest section of the ground in what's deemed as the worst seats. It's almost doubled, and it's a slap in the face massively to anyone who's trying to promote bringing kids to games. And we always talk about, and you're similar to myself, Shaun, you promote the next generation coming through. And we all know the lifeblood of any football club is to continue handing the baton down as you do with your kids, I do with mine. You're looking at people that are, again, working class people trying to hand that love down of the club to the next generation, and they're getting priced out of it. It's ludicrous. They've also gone and decided that through the situation or the system that they have in place. So my season ticket in the lower half of Stretford End is valued at £42 per game. I can, if I'm not attending a game, choose to sell my ticket back to the club, which they will then resale on general sale. But they'll resale my £42 ticket for £66. This is a mind-blower decision they've done. They've already been paid for this ticket on my season ticket. They're now going to resell it at another profit. Argument for saying, is it not selling over face value? 25% discount applied for UEFA Europa League knockout fixtures and potential Carabao semi-final for members and non-opted in season ticket holders. So any season ticket holder who hasn't opted into the cup scheme, that's gone. This is an assault on the ticketing system, an assault on fan finances mid-season. Already after going through a situation where the manager's gone, we've had enough ups and downs over the last couple of years. We've had kids' ticket rises from, as a supporters club, £5, £13, £25, £66. This is in the space of 5 years. We've gone from £5 to £66 for, say, a 6-year-old child to go with his granddad. I mean, and then the club have the cheek the weekend to throw a tweet up with images of players signing autographs for those that matter, an older person and a kid. Tone deaf, read the room. It's weird, Shaun. It's strange times. They're focusing and targeting areas that arguably should be left alone or maybe slightly touched, but not as hard. And one of the amusing statements you'll see from people is, we're paying players exuberant wages. Sell one of those players. There's your outlaying cost gone on the fan supporter services. You've damaged supporter services no end. You've taken away 250 staff. So contacting the club, interacting with the club, getting help and assistance from the club has been demolished. The guys working in the supporters club network part of the ground, the ticketing office, they've suffered no end. Their workload has gone through the roof. They're stressed out. I feel extremely sorry for them, to be honest with you. And they're hitting fans both in the pocket and taking away the loyalty of European away games. You can now just buy your European away game ticket. You can attend or not attend, but you'll get your credit. And it destroys a working system. So it's not, I suppose, getting back to your question, it's not what I expected to come from Ineos coming in. Maybe I was naively expecting a little bit more kids' gloves on the ticketing side and the fan side, maybe more so they were going to focus on business and sponsorship and, dare I say it, the Ed Woodward style of bringing in noodle sponsors and buffering the finances that way. But no, they've gone after the fans. Strange. And protests followed in the weekend, as you say.
When you say that it's not reading the room, it's the easiest way to put this. If you had closed your eyes and paid no attention to what was going on with the football club for 3-4 months, you would think, okay, well, this is the latest and greatest maneuver of the American owners, because it just falls foul with poor ownership and this disenchanted relationship that doesn't exist between ownership and supporters. We see so much when we look at the Glazers and the American sporting model. There's been so much made of this because obviously Manchester United is continuously compared with American institutions and franchises. People on average pay something like $137 or $147 to go and see a game. Football has always been different because football is for the people. It's coming at such a time, especially for myself and yourself, because for anyone who's listening, surprise, we're Irish, and there is obviously a general election that has just taken place in a time when cost of living is at the forefront. This isn't just in Ireland, though. This is across the water. You have it in England, you have it in Scotland, you have it in Wales. People are struggling to put food on their table. People are struggling to even keep a roof over their head. We've had record homelessness in Ireland. And you're talking about a situation where mid-season, this decision is taken in a completely obscure sort of way that individuals are left completely gobsmacked. And ultimately, there's nothing they can do about it.
You know, I suppose on the little funny metaphor side of things, I don't know if you've ever seen the clip of Kurt Cobain and Nirvana talking to an American journalist on price of concerts and how much were being charged. Funnily enough, Kurt Cobain had no idea how much they charged. And back then in the day, they asked their manager or whatever, how much do we charge? I think it was $15 to $20. It was grand. And then the journalist said, well, Madonna is charging somewhere between 80 and 100. And his face dropped and he was like, what? You're charging people that much just to listen to music? In a similar vein, look at the price increase for what was lauded as the working man's game, the working class game. All our lives growing up, it was normal everyday folk. It wasn't for the rich. It was for us, for normal lads. Now it's becoming slowly but surely out of reach. And going back to your comments on the American model, how far are we away from dynamic pricing? I mean, it's common sense. If they're following this trend and they're looking that way, and they're looking to build a $100,000-seater stadium, which again, I'm confused about, because if you're going to start pricing people out of going to football, and evident at the weekend with Everton, if you went on Manchester United's ticketing section on the website, before a weekend during the day kickoff, you would not get a ticket. They just weren't there. You get hospitality tickets. You may pick up the odd single here and there. There were tickets all over the ground available. Madness. They're starting to squeeze the fans a little bit too much. So what happens when we have a 100,000-seater stadium and we draw Doncaster at home in the cup? You literally can't give these tickets away as it stands to a certain extent. What are you going to do when you're charging 66 quid for it, for a child? Like, these are the kind of games that they're the games you do get your 2 adults and your 2 kids going. There's a bit of a cheaper discount on what's already enough money to be paying to go. And now you're jacking that price up. This all stinks like a rotten fish of going down a very, very bad road. That, where does it end? This is the worrying question. Where does this end? How long is the rope? What part of the rope are they going to take to hang us all with? Because it can only go so far. As you said, the economy here is struggling. Worldwide, people are struggling. We've only got X amount of expendable money to spend. So it's going to either stop fans that go to 20 games a season, make them go to 10, or those lads who go family and kids trip twice a year. Maybe it might be once. Maybe they just can't afford it at all. It's hitting people you don't need to hit, and that's the disappointing side of it for me.
We see about revenues that are posted on a quarterly basis and the amount of money that's being lost, and we can only assume just how bad things have gotten when owners have stopped taking dividends out of the football club, and we're having to pinch and claw for these deals in arguing in thousands because of financial fair play and the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. I wonder just how much is going on behind the scenes that we are not yet aware of. Because ultimately, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been known to be the definition of a shrewd business individual. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, he's built an empire, and he continues to do so. He doesn't build an empire by being a naive individual. And he, more than anybody else who grew up from humble backgrounds and raised himself to what he is aware that this is a working man's game. And it's working individuals that are going, and this is their outlet after a very difficult week and the struggles that they're having. I wonder just how much is going on that he's openly willing to break new ground by releasing mid-season price hikes. Like something like you said, I know that they're not affecting, we'll say, if you transferred your season ticket to another member, there's no cost incurred on that. But obviously, the ideal in essentially touting the ticket themselves to be able to receive money over the top, it's extortion of the highest rate, and there's no other way of looking at it. So I wonder just what we're looking at behind the scenes here, Brian, that if they're willing to do that and they know the outcry and the fallback that's going to come from this, what are we not seeing here? I'd like to think I'm fairly astute when it comes to the financial side of the game and the business side of the game. It's something I pride myself on. But even I cannot grasp what it is they're trying to achieve in upsetting the entire fan base.
Like, it's total and utter cutthroat opinion or cutthroat attitude towards everyone, staff, fans. Again, as I said, targeting areas that are going to ruffle feathers, targeting supporter services, one of the most vital things you have as a fan. The backup of the club, the ability to contact the club for assistance if required, the ability to contact the club and buy tickets or whatever you need to do. You sack 250 staff, that suffers. You break a system for attending away European games, that suffers. You kill the price of tickets for kids and OAPs and whatnot, that suffers. These are all, you stop the club staff trip to cup finals. I mean, they're hitting the Joe soap, the nuts and bolts. So, like you say, I suppose it's a fair question. If they're willing to do that to what we see publicly, what are they willing to do behind the scenes to cut extra revenues and extra expenditures? And it leads us to one of the key pet hates I have with the club is lack of communications in every sense of the term. We get nothing. We just get nothing. We get changes to ticketing terms and conditions that someone notices when they go on the website. I mean, look at last year. Last year they forced, or well, the last few years, they forced an obligation to have a membership to attend a match. You cannot be a non-member. Touted as safety, wanting to know who's attending games, or more like they just want to get an extra tenner off everyone or 20 quid. And then all of a sudden, one game, it appears on the website, you can now give your ticket to non-members if the game hasn't sold out within 3 hours of kickoff for free. Where did this come out of? Who discussed this? Who told us this was happening? It just came because they want to get some extra lads to come in and buy a few more pies or pints or get to the mega store or whatnot. They just suit themselves whenever they so please. They'll do things out of nowhere. It looks almost like trial and error. They'll just throw it out there. Oh, look, you can do that this week, but you can't do it next week because next week's a different week now and we have a different attitude. But this week it's okay because we get a few extra bums in the seats. Communications lacking so bad. Engaging with the fans forum and the fan advisory board. I mean, Jesus, we've got a whole system and setup of hardcore, die-in-the-wool Reds. Use them, talk to them, bring them in for extraordinary fans forum meeting after every 3 months or 2 months, whatever it is. Pull them in and say, look, we're thinking about doing this. It's not going to go down well. What way can we do it, or what can we do? And have a little brainstorm, a little think tank. No. They just fire out, this is the price of tickets and that's it. Communication, engagement, so poor. And as a result of that, we see protest. And I'm not surprised, not in the slightest. I'm not surprised that it's riled up people this much, and I'm not surprised people took to the streets. We've seen it across the league. Other clubs are getting involved. As you said, Everton fans got involved in our protest the weekend. People are sick of it in general. People are match-going football fans and parents that are taking kids to games. We're sick of it. We're sick of loyalty being targeted. Our own football club prides itself on the old Sir Matt Busby statement, football's nothing without fans. Well, back it up. Behave that way. Treat your fans with respect and respect our loyalty and give a bit of gratitude back. What's going to happen next summer? Everyone's speculating now, will season tickets rise by 10%, 20%, 50%? No one knows, but we're all expecting further hikes and we're all expecting new terms, and it's becoming a labour of love at this stage and a financial burden.
It all stems, the one last thing I'll say before we move on from this. The Glazers are still there. Everyone has forgotten this because all we just keep talking about is Ineos and Sir Jim Radcliffe. The Glazers are still there. They've got their fingers all over this.
Before we move off this, just to go back to something you touched on a second ago. This is all happening. And people, I suppose, I won't say we've forgotten about it, but it hasn't really been brought to the fore that much in the last few weeks. This is all as a result of the Glazers, who took dividends while the club was on its knees. Think of the cheek. Think of the cojones they had. You can almost laughably respect the neck they had to say, right, the club was going down the toilet financially. PSR problems and bleeding, hemorrhaging money. But I'm still taking my pound of flesh. that's the end of the story. I'm getting my few quid out of this. And now we've resulted in a situation where you've absolutely nailed it. Ineos are seen to be the ones doing it. Sir Jim Radcliffe, bad Sir Jim, bold Sir Jim, bold Ineos. But the puppet masters are still in the background sitting there smiling because now the whole focus is gone on the Glazers. The little Glazer boys over in America, they're not getting the heat and the journalists trying to chase them down. Now it's local lad, Jim, is a tyrant and he's terrible. They've got to be laughing. They've got to be loving this. They've taken all the focus off themselves. And has Jim fallen into the trap of taking over the responsibility of being the bad guy? Who knows? But I suppose it's in a sadistic way. It's amusing to watch it unfold.
As difficult as it is now following such negativity, let's move to the football, because ultimately that's why we're all here. And we did have a comprehensive 4-0 Old Trafford victory against Everton, which sealed 3 points and moved the side to 9th in the table. That's only 4 points off the Champions League places, Brian. And we got a positive goal difference now, which is something we've not had for quite some time. Furthermore, it's now 7 games unbeaten, 5 wins in the process, and further signs that the team are growing in confidence alongside their new Portuguese tactician. Just focusing on the game itself, what were your takeaways?
Unbelievably enjoyable in the sense that I was sat there and at 40 odd minutes, 46 minutes, something 3-0, a couple of more minutes later, I don't know, around maybe 60 minutes, I can't remember the time scales, but 4-0, game over, dead and buried. And I was like, what? This is such a strange feeling. I mean, we don't do this. We haven't done this in so long. I'm sitting here calmly watching my team see out a game with no real danger of us making a complete mess of it. I like it. I'd like this. I'd like us to do this a bit more. Performance-wise, as much as a 4-0 looks like we absolutely battered them off the park, and we did towards the latter stages of the game. We took control big time, but the early stages weren't as endearing. I mean, I did spend the first, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes going, geez, we're kind of getting into gear, but we're not getting into gear, and will it click, won't it click? What do you expect? We're under a new guy, totally new system. I love Shaun. I love this fella's attitude. I love his personality. I love the answers he gives in the sense that you made 6 changes. Why? Well, we've got a load of lads learning on their feet. We've only had X amount of training sessions, match training. Everyone needs to learn, and some of these need to learn on the job. What an answer. What a beautiful soundbite. Learning on the job. Class. Don't get me wrong, this isn't saying that this guy is the Midas touch or anything, but I just like the way he's approaching it. I like the refreshing attitude towards it. People, I suppose, need, again, the pragmatic terms that we use: relax, chill out, calm down. This is not going to be a bed of roses straight away. It's going to take a while. I don't expect this to click straight away. I do expect it to click eventually, and hopefully this new system beds in and the boys buy into it, or we need to get 1 or 2 players to make it, just fine-tune it. But it's lovely to watch a real definitive style. And it's something, I suppose, we talked about many times before, lacking a style or lacking an identity. Nice to see it come into play, and I can accept it not going right straight away. I can accept it taking a while to bed in. I can accept certain players to find positions a little bit different. Amad Diallo, right wing back. I don't think I'd ever in my life have looked at Amad Diallo for 1 second and said, geez, you know that fella, he'd make a class right wing back. But seemingly he does, and Ruben Amorim knows a hell of a lot more than I do, and he picked him for that job. So it's incredibly interesting, and I enjoyed every last second of the game. I was delighted to see Marcus Rashford score. It makes me smirk from ear to ear, because at the same time Marcus hits form, he's in love again. I mean, how simple is the man's mind? How simple is the male part of the species? Get us a woman, keep us happy, and we'll perform all over the pitch, and we'll bang the goals in. You can look at the timeline of his relationships and the timeline of his form, and I think there's a bit of a running theme there. So that was good to see. And did big Joshua Zirkzee, Marouane Fellaini off Timu, some people say. I don't know what to say about him. I'm delighted he scored. Don't get me wrong, delighted. I hope to God he bangs in 40 goals for the rest of the season. It's just such a weird style. Like, he's got such a strange gatch about him, as we'd say in an Irishman. A bit of a gatch. Strange. People were comparing him to Berbatov the weekend because he's slow. Berbatov was slow because he was a genius. Xerxes slow because he's a big unit. His fella's a monster, but He lovely link-up play, liked seeing him drop him deep, got his goals, thought Bruno was incredibly unselfish to square that ball to him, could have justifiably put it in the back of the net. That was a captain's effort to square it across him and let him have the finish. But yeah, nice to see us win 4-0 for the first time since, I think, was it Leeds a couple of years back. So long may it last, and hopefully we get another 4-0 on Wednesday night. I hope and pray.
Pretty sure it was August of 21. I think when we put 5 past Leeds, it was 5-1. And we thought that the sun, the moon, the stars was all shining upon us. You've touched on a lot there. And one of the main things I did want to speak to you about was Joshua Zirkzee. Because obviously a brace for him and a brace for Rashford, both players needing that injection of confidence that was ultimately inspired, as you said, by Bruno and by Amad Diallo. Now on Zirkzee, it's his 3rd Premier League goal and his first since the season opener against Fulham. He's had his critics, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in saying that you're very much one of them, but his skill set was on full show throughout the game, and his more withdrawn role replicated the glory days that he had under Thiago Motta at Bologna. You mentioned Berbatov, that people were speaking about him at the weekend. I actually said the same or similar to Zach Lowy on one of the episodes a couple of weeks ago. Zach said that, yeah, but it's kind of disrespectful to Berbatov. It's not necessarily saying that, yeah, Zirkzee is Berbatov 2.0. It's more that languid kind of style that he has and how he moves and he grasps around the place. I do want to assure you, though, from having had the opportunity to follow Bologna when I did well over a year ago at this stage, he really is a technically savvy footballer. He's very, very proficient in what he does. But this is a guy who has played 19 games, and it's not 19 90 minutes either, Brian. It's 19 appearances. You know, he's had very, very limited opportunities. He spent a big fulcrum at that time with small cameos coming off the bench, not only for Erik ten Hag, but also for Ruud van Nistelrooy. But has this performance against Everton gone any way towards convincing you that the officials have made the right choice in bringing him to the football club?
You're right in saying I was a critic. I think I'm by no means letting myself off the hook here, because I don't do that. I'll own any criticism I give, but I could never see a role for him under Erik ten Hag. This is what confused me. Ten Hag's system and style and the way he was going to be implemented, and he came in as a striker, but he was a 9.5 and blah, blah, blah. We've done this to death. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see where he fitted. Ruud van Nistelrooy's style again, yeah, it wasn't crying out to me, this is a Zirkzee system. Amarim's implementation of football, there's a place for him in this, and it's a very important cog in the wheel that he can provide with his skill set, because his link-up play when he drops deeper and he gets that ball at his feet is really, really good. It's impressive to watch. I think if Ruben Amorim can utilise him properly in a role that suits him, and a role that I think he himself wants to play in, because it was him that labelled himself a 9.5, not the fan base. I think he knows what his skill set is more than we do. I can see him being a far more successful asset to the club under Amorim than I would have thought under Ten Hag. And that's not, again, giving me a let off. I just couldn't see it. And I don't think it's unfair to say under Ten Hag's system that he was a bit of a square peg in a round hole, because it just didn't work. And then again, I suppose looking back, what was the system? The system wasn't really hitting the highlights. So yeah, I like what I saw from him. One swallow doesn't make a summer, but I won't be getting Zirkzee tattooed on my back by God knows anytime soon. But yeah, look, I'd love to see him kick on. I'd love to see him score around him. If he does, it means those around him are doing the same thing, and it can only mean we're successful as a club and as a team. So yeah, Joshua Zirkzee has definitely silenced many a critic with his performance the weekend, and long may it last, and hopefully this new system can bring the best of him. And I really, really hope, and you're going to smirk when I mention this, but I hope Mason Mount can find a place in the team, because we've had this convo, and I think again it's back to what I'm saying about Zirkzee. I could not see for the life of me where Mount fitted into a Ten Hag system, or at least the system Ten Hag tried to play. Now I can, because again it's a totally different system. It allows more expressive football. It allows more link up, more quick thinking, and maybe this is where Mason Mount can come in. If he's ever fit, might I add, have to give him that little slap in the arse. But if he's ever fit, hopefully he can come back in and stay fit and provide the glory days of Mason Mount that we're all hoping he brings. So, but yeah, that's my take on the change of style and the potential uplift in player form and fortunes.
I was going to mention Mount, but I wasn't going to get into a conversation about it, because that is a podcast in itself. I'm glad you mentioned it. But one man that you didn't mention, and one who didn't feature, and it raised a couple of eyebrows following his sublime showing against Bodo Glimt, was Rasmus Højlund. Now, I've made my feelings very clear about the boy. And I think he looks like a man who can replicate the forward work of Victor Gyökeres at Sporting. He's got that natural sort of clinical ability about him. And it was truly on show with that phenomenal control and finish 1-2 against Norwegians. That was genuinely one of the most spectacular finishes I've seen. And I know we need to be deep in squad depth to remain competitive. And having 3 forwards hitting an individual brace in 3 days is a remarkable achievement. But just how impressed were you with Hoyland in Europe, very briefly?
Super impressive, Hoyland, against Bodo. That goal that you just made reference to, wow, what a beautiful goal. That's one of those goals where you think, I would never have thought of doing that. Like, some lads will go and just try smack it. Some will try control it and bring it down. But to touch it and not bang, smack, caught everyone unawares. Really, really clever, really clinical. Yeah, look, I've been a big fan of Hoyland all along. When he joined us first, I was waxing lyrical about the bravery of a kid that age coming in, taking the mantle of being our number one striker. But 3 forward players scoring a brace, if we can take a little bit of the pressure off him by contributions around him, that's going to help him a lot, because it'll take that focus off him and the amount of stick he's going to come in for. I like the fact Amorim rested him, even though he came off 2, he stayed straight out. Hoyland is dead. Hoyland, he's wrecked. There's no point flogging a dead horse, basically. So, yeah, fair play to him. I suppose not to throw a dig back at our former bald his best gaffer, but one of the biggest gripes all of us had, even his biggest fans, was stubbornness to change the players and the personnel. We saw the refusal to rest certain players if they were out of form or if they were tired. 6 changes from Thursday to Sunday. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And we do have, as you mentioned, squad depth. We do have squad depth. If we didn't get absolutely battered with injuries last season, you could see it more so, and people may not take the squad depth as serious as it is, but we do have squad depth. We've added some great depth to the team all over the pitch. We've got, look, Maguire's coming back in, Luke Shaw, Manu came back in there the weekend. We've got some lovely players coming back that can really contribute to the system. And again, as Amorim has identified, we're playing matches relentlessly, constant. You need to be able to shake it up. And he did. I know, look, we're probably getting ahead of ourselves, and it's only a small sample case study of 2 games, but it was really encouraging to see Amorim identify the fact that we can't batter these players to death that quickly. They're going to have to learn on the job, but that's the way it's going to be. And I'm willing to make a good, healthy amount of changes to keep the team fresh. And it paid dividends, because the team did look fresh again against Everton, and I'd expect him on Wednesday night against Arsenal. I know Lisandro Martinez he's bloody suspended, and so is Kobbie Mainoo, which is a disappointment, but I still expect there'll be a couple of more changes on top of that. So that's always the way for a team that's going to be challenging at the forefront of football. I mean, involved in multiple competitions. If you're a team in the lower spectre or the lower half, even the Premier League, which we've been languishing in ourselves for a while, so I suppose it's a bit cheeky to say this, but if you're not competing in the likes of Europe, Carabao and FA Cup, going deep in those, you can probably get away with a smaller squad and less rotation. But if you're going to be in 4 competitions and trying to go deep in all of those and trying to challenge at the top of the league or top 4 or 5 or 6, you need to have that ability to change things. And I think we do have it, and I like the fact that Amorim recognised that straight away. So bodes well for the future. And if we can keep the fitness levels up of players across the pitch, it bodes well for our performances overall. So, yeah, all looks rosy in the garden until Wednesday, hopefully.
Until Wednesday, and that does bring us nicely to that. I think, Brian, one of the most phenomenal things after everything we've gone through is that should we win, we move to within 3 points behind Arsenal, who are currently in 2nd place. And while nothing can be taken for granted, momentum is a funny thing in football, as I always say. Manchester United tend to turn up for these types of fixtures, albeit, as we were speaking about prior to actually recording this, London has not been a happy spot for us in recent years. We have been beaten in the last 3 meetings, and we've not won in North London since an FA Cup tie in 2019. It is worthwhile mentioning to anyone who doesn't know, very shortly before we came on here, we've drawn Arsenal in the FA Cup, and we're going to travel there once more in January. You've mentioned Licha and Mainoo both being suspended following another yellow card. But have you seen enough Portuguese magic in a handful of games to convince yourself that this team has a shock in them on Wednesday against Arsenal?
Quick way to answer this. About 65 minutes into the game on Sunday, I booked flights to go over on Wednesday night. So, yeah, 100%. I'm all in. We're going there, and we're taking 3 points. And it's actually the scene, I suppose. Look, not to spend too long and bore your listeners, but it's the scene of one of the moments that's really taken some of the love for football out of my life. In recent years, like VAR, again, worthy of another podcast by itself, that VAR decision against Garnacho, we spoke about it off air. I think it's the most I've celebrated a like cup final type goal in years and years and years. It was Ten Hag implementing his passing out from the back system, which we finally saw for the first time. And Onana was doing the Pirlo-esque balls around the back, and Everton was going. You were like, yeah, Jesus, is this what he's trying to do? And it just worked. Perfect. Alejandro Garnacho broke free, stuck it, and I went ballistic. I can name 5 lads that were with me, and there were multiple bruises the following morning from the excitement after that goal. And VAR robbed it. Still adamant to this day he was onside. I think it was a tragedy. But I think this is where we get our revenge on Wednesday night. Arsenal are getting a bit too cocky. Piers Morgan is chirping up as usual. They're getting a bit too big for their boots, and Arteta's getting a bit smirky. What would it be for the Man United who've been so bad all season, the worst team ever, who are now 4 points behind the best team in the world in Man City with a better goal difference? Just saying. Pep Guardiola self-harming at the thoughts of his last 7 games. And now we have Mikel Arteta, who's, I suppose I was going to say Rooney's title host, but then again, the other side of the coin, you have the boys down the road who are flying and going for the league. So it's a bittersweet one. But look, we'll always worry about ourselves. What happens after that case, but we play who's in front of us. I fancy us, even without Martinez and Meno. I fancy this little Portuguese fella. Beard is best can be announced by taking a big win in a midweek night in the Emirates Stadium, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you, whether it's naivety or whether it's something completely else, I don't know. But I do have a sneaking suspicion, despite the absolute pain and the torture that we've had in North London, that something may come out of it. One last thing, very quick, I'll put it to you. What scoreline are we looking at?
Think discipline display in the first half, while Ruben Amorim feels out what it's like to play Arsenal away. Good, solid defensive display, hard work going on. I'm going to say Arsenal nick one early in the second half to frighten us. And then our Portuguese Harry Potter is going to pull a magic wand out. We'll equalise towards the latter stages of the game, and then an injury time winner out of absolutely nowhere. Big Joshua Zirkzee to get his big Afro-style head on the end of one and go absolutely mental. Bring on the bruises, bring on the hangover. Cannot wait.
There you go. And you have your odds for that one, ladies and gentlemen. Brian, a pleasure as absolutely always. If anybody wants to continue this conversation with yourself or just say hello, how can they do so?
You really, really must. I'm at DayTrippingRed on Twitter. I wouldn't advise it because it's mostly about food, football, and some nonsense that I think up in my head on a daily basis. But yeah, you'll find me there.
Absolute pleasure. And definitely anyone who's listening who doesn't know Brian, well worth following him because he's insightful, he's genuine, and he is probably the definition of an enigma, just like our Dutch enigma in Mr. Joshua Zirkzee. Anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can do so as always at Shaun Connolly 85 on Twitter. And you can follow the Theatre of Red on every single social platform at theatre_of_red. And if you're still here, give a like and a subscribe on the podcast and take 20 seconds, leave a review. Every single one of them helps. Every single one of them is felt truly. Enjoy the football on Wednesday. I hope you got a great week and I'll catch you all very soon. Up to Reds.